everybody. Matt Heller here, founder of Performance Optimist Consulting and the author of The Myth of Employee Burnout. Here with another excellent episode of 3 Questions. This is where I get to ask 3 questions of a guest, they get to ask 3 questions of me, and we just see where the conversation goes. We have no idea what those questions are going to be when we start, so all of our answers are unrehearsed and unprepared. Today I am super excited to welcome Courtney Rayburn to the call. Courtney has been in marketing and doing social media for attractions for quite a while. I'll let her give you more of a background of what she's done. But we got to connect at the recent WWA conference and had a great time just catching up. So I thought it'd be great to have her on 3 questions. So Courtney, without further ado, if you could just say hello and tell us a little bit about what you do.
All right, thank you, Matt. I actually started my career in group sales at Six Flags Astroworld in 1999. That is in Houston, for those that don't know. I was in group sales for both theme parks and family entertainment centers up until 2010, when I kind of switched over to marketing side, primarily with social media, digital media. I worked for Palace Entertainment for about 10 years, both in the park and in parks and at corporate office. And then I went to Apex Parks Group for a little while as well. So right now I'm getting started on hopefully offering some consulting services for parks that might need some more insight on how they can move forward with their social and digital efforts.
Excellent.
So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very exciting to get to talk to you again, after WWA. So are you ready for your first question?
Sure.
All right. Well, it has to do with something you just mentioned, and probably a question that you get quite a bit, and that is around social media and what people are doing wrong. So what kind of things do you see people doing wrong in terms of social media?
Sure.
Or that aren't...
I don't think that there's really a truly right way to do social media. I think it all depends on your brand, your community. But the main thing that runs true through social media and why it grew for businesses as quickly as it did is because you could form that sense of community. So in order to say what somebody or what people might be doing wrong is that they're still, much like their print ads and their TV ads, they're still making it all about them. So instead of finding out what their community or their guests or their clientele want or need or what they're talking about, they're just saying buy from us, buy from us, buy from us. We're awesome, buy from us. Instead of actually engaging and communicating. Okay. Two-way communication, not one-way communication.
And I would imagine that is the more difficult part because it takes time, it takes people to do that. So what are some of the strategies that people can employ to be able to be successful? Sure.
It's ask questions, showcase what your guests are doing. We'll target this to theme parks, obviously, or to parks, but, show off what your guests are doing in the park. Show off your employees. Ask a lot of questions about what people want to see. What do you want to do? What's your favorite ride? Things like that. And not just ask it and then go away, but actually interact. If somebody says, that their favorite ride is XYZ, then you go in, oh yeah, that's a great one, or give them a historical fact about the ride or something like that. So it really is really about the interaction and the engagement. It's not just a publish and leave kind of situation. So
okay, great. I know that's one thing I struggle with my social media. I try not to make it too salesy, but at the same time, it's a business, so you have to kind of balance it.
Yeah. Right, and it should be more conversational too. You don't have to say buy for me, buy for me, buy for me. You could say, look at this person that bought for me, or show off, your fun food products and things like that. Just in saying, hey, we have this, and you don't have to be real pushy about it.
Okay. Speaking of food, and this is kind of question, I guess, 1A, B, and C.
I was going to say.
It's fascinating because, food gets so many hits, and people love to talk about food and post about food, and, it's just amazing what I guess food brings people together in all sorts of domains. So fun.
Yes, they do.
All right, great. Thank you for that. So do you have a question for me?
I do.
Great.
Let's see which one to start with. I guess, okay, so what advice do you have for leaders to overcome stereotypes about their team or the people that make up their workforce? Like, some people say that millennials are lazy, that, there may be stereotypes of a single employee versus a married employee, things like that. So what advice would you have for leaders to help them change their mindsets based on those stereotypes?
It's a great question, especially around the generations, because that was a really hot topic for a while, and I think it's waning a little bit. But there's still a lot of people that talk about the differences between millennials and Gen X and that type of thing. And I think it really comes down to getting to know your individual employees. And quite frankly, those stereotypes, they are just that. And whether it's, like you said, if it's a married employee, if they're single, if they have a certain ethnic background, if they've got a certain, home life, whatever it is, there's going to be stereotypes that we're going to use to judge people. And that's really all we're doing, is we're judging them, prejudging them before we really find out what they're all about. So I encourage people to really get to know them. And one of the questions I like to ask people is that true? So if somebody says, my millennial employees are lazy. Well, is that true? First of all of them? Well, maybe not of all of them. Okay, well, now we're seeing that it's a stereotype and we need to get past that. So, are all those things true about those different, even generations? And I think even comparing the different generations, what I like to do for people is to point out some of those things where, I've met 50-year-old people who are lazy. So it's not just millennials, and I've met millennials who are extremely hard workers, and they're really, really smart. So I think some of it too is our lens that we look through, and when we say, well, it's just those millennials, and that's not the way it was when I was a kid. Well, so what? So what? They don't have to walk uphill both ways to school, in the snow with no shoes. So what? Get past that and figure out how to get to know those employees, what they need, what they want. Just like you said with social, it's a two-way conversation. Don't make it just about you and what you need to project to them. Get some input back from them. I think now more than ever, transparency is huge. We have to be able to change swiftly with the business that's happening. So I don't think we can be so closed-minded as to think that everything is going to fit into a certain bucket and that those stereotypes are real, because they're not. They're just not. That's a great point. And again, I'm glad you brought up more than just millennials, even though that's where I tended to go with my answer. But it's really true of any way that we can put somebody into a bucket.
Right. Yeah, it's one of the things that I tell people about working in the amusement industry is that I've worked with teenagers since I was one, because, it's true. We constantly have the new team members coming in, and they just get younger and younger. I'm not getting older; they're getting younger.
Of course not. Of course not.
Yeah. But I have watched, the change in even my own perception, because I've told, I had 18-year-old team members that I just thought were, had a bunch of attitude and all that, but then they, would do one thing and it would surprise me, and it changed my idea of what they were and who they were, because I also had that stereotype at the time,
Mm-hmm.
So something I've worked on, to alleviate. So.
And and it's interesting. The part of the way that I got out of that mindset. So, when the whole generations thing came out, it was very big, and there were books about it and videos, and all kinds of people were talking about it. And I kind of embraced it because I thought at the time that wow, these differences are things that people need to know about. And I was doing a session where I was kind of outlining some of the differences, and one of the millennials in the room said, "That's not me." He's like, "That is not who I am." And I'm like, "Oh, so these aren't so accurate, And that's where it just kind of clicked for me. And like, okay, we got to get to know people individually. And I'd always kind of thought that, but now looking through a different lens, even more so, that we can't use these stereotypes to prejudge people.
Right. And a lot of it is that they're guilty by association sometimes too, that maybe they're friends with or they hang out with people that are like that. And so you assume that the whole group is.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think focusing on the individual is very important, regardless of the age of the person or, that you have working for you or with you. So.
And that takes time. Just like doing the right thing on social. It takes time to get to know people and talk to them and listen to them. It takes time, and it's not always easy.
Yeah. Agree.
Good. All right. Great question. Are you ready for your next one?
Yes.
So this is a little different, but if you could have one superpower that could help you in your business, what would it be?
Wow. You changed my answer when you said that would help me in my business.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. So go
I guess maybe read.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Read minds, I guess.
Oh.
So that way I could give them the answer before they even ask the question.
My goodness, would you be valuable, right? Even more valuable than you are, right? Yeah. Wow. To read minds. So how does that change if I didn't put it for your business? What was the answer before that?
It would be more to change minds, actually. Because just, from a member of humanity, I guess, to change people's minds in terms of, eliminating hatred and bigotry and, things like that. So yeah. Just kind of my tree hugger hippie answer, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And especially if you watched the debate last night, maybe to get rid of some of those things.
Well, right? I wasn't going to admit that I did, but right. Yeah, I watched a lot of it.
I did too. But
I've already voted. It doesn't matter.
So thinking about both of those, right? One is to change minds and to influence people, which you do anyway. Through social media and through marketing. That's sure. Kind of what you do through those channels anyway. But really interesting to be able to read someone's mind to figure out what they really want from a business standpoint. I would love that too. That'd be awesome. If every business person had that, man, that would change business forever. So
yeah, but if everybody had it, it'd be interesting to see how that worked too.
I guess it wouldn't.
I know what you're thinking, but right? I'm thinking.
Yeah. I guess it wouldn't be a superpower then.
Right, it would just be normal.
Right, yeah. So forget that. Forget I said that. I'll edit that out. But you're right. It's a good point. Good point. All right. So
my turn?
Yes.
All right. Well, since you asked me a fun one, I'll ask you a fun one.
Okay.
If money were no object, like you don't have to worry about a paycheck or anything like that, you've got endless supply. Where would you live, and how would you spend your free time? Or how would you spend your time, I guess?
Okay. So I wouldn't have to earn a living by doing something. Correct. Right. So this might sound like a kind of a cheesy answer, but my wife and I just moved to North Carolina, and I love it here. I really do. And right. So that was my first thought. Well, I'm kind of here. So, and money is an object, but here is a pretty cool place, Western North Carolina. But thinking about any place, that's a good question because there's so many different places. Can I go to multiple places? Like, can I have?
I would.
Right? Yeah. So could I have a place like up in the mountains of Colorado or something, or some place like that, or a place on the beach, or a place up in New Hampshire, or the New England area. So I'd probably to that question, I'd probably have places all over the place. And I'd want to try places like in Europe or in other parts of the world. So maybe my answer isn't that I would live in one place. But you asked how I would spend my time. I would spend my time traveling, I think. For a long time.
Between all your places.
Exactly. But for a long time, and my wife laughs at me, I wanted to get an RV and go travel and, have that be the method of travel between, speaking gigs and things like that. And I just love being, kind of out and traveling and experiencing new things. So I think I would do a lot of traveling in the time that I would have. And if, like you said, money was no object, I'd probably drive an RV all around the United States and then fly to another country, another continent, and get an RV there and drive around there. So that's probably what I would do.
Nice. RV the world.
Yes, I think I would. And really, I think that stems from, when we were growing up, my parents would rent an RV, and for a while we owned an RV. And that would be how we'd get places, and we'd drive around. And, of course, I wasn't old enough to drive at the time, but just being on the road and, kind of having an agenda but not having an agenda, And I think that's what's cool about, that kind of travel is you want to take a detour, you take a detour. And you just go wherever the adventure takes you. So I think that's what I would do. Yeah. But it's an interesting question because I hadn't really thought about it before. But now I've got a plan. Thank you.
Right. You're welcome. When you win the lottery multiple times and money's no object, that's you know what you're going to do.
Exactly. Yes, I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, I'm actually the same way. I think it would definitely be traveling, but in terms of houses all over the place. Europe, Ireland is a place that I just recently last year was able to go to finally, and I want to see more of it. All of it. It's small. I could see all of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the road trips and things like that. I joke though, because I always tell people I love traveling, except when I'm doing it. And it's not just it's not the destination.
Right.
It's the actual traveling, the airports and the cars and taxis and that part of it. I always, while I'm doing that part, I'm like, I hate traveling, but obviously getting to the destination, enjoying it, and, the memories that are made whenever you're traveling are invaluable. So.
Absolutely. So
yeah.
Good. Well, I guess, when we both win the lottery, we'll see each other as we pass each other traveling.
Right. Hey, maybe we could just, share we'll timeshare some houses or something around the world.
That's awesome. Yeah. I've never been to Ireland, so I'd love to go there.
Oh yeah. It's very nice. Very nice.
Awesome.
Bring a raincoat.
Yeah, right. Okay. Good advice. All right. So you ready for, is it your third question already? All right, here we go. So my original question, I may want to change a little bit, but I'm going to share with you the original question. So the original question was to fast forward 20 years and to think about what marketing and social media and, engaging customers would look like in 20 years. But then I thought, can we go that far out? Do we just need to think about next year? As things change so quickly, maybe we can't go out that far. Maybe we need to only go out 5 years or so. So I will leave that in the hands of the expert and say, what is a good time frame to kind of look forward to? And if you said 5 or 10 years, what do you think the landscape will look like at that point?
Yeah, it is hard to go out that far. Technology even now has changed so much in terms of what we can do, even with just a mobile device versus when I started in social media in, 2009 and 10. Facebook didn't even have a mobile app at that point, so it does change very, very quickly. That's really hard. I think how we communicate, I don't think is really going to change much, because we're always going to have word of mouth. A lot of people thought that email marketing was dead a couple of years ago, and then it may have been passed out or in a temporary coma, but it's not dead. It's still a very important part of marketing efforts. Those are people that have really chosen to allow you, into their world. People said that about social media too, but with for example, like Facebook's algorithms, you have to overcome a lot. Just because somebody likes your page, you have to overcome a lot of, the technical side of things, or you have to pay, or, whatever it is to actually get in front of a lot of those people. So I don't know, maybe going a couple of years down the road, there might be something new that, a new platform that comes along. I don't think at this point or this soon that anything's really going to beat out Facebook, unless, in terms of the number of users, unless they really screw up something, So they're really going to have to make a change that forces people off of the platform because they just really don't enjoy it anymore. And I don't think they'll do that. They've come close a couple of times with some of their changes, but so yeah, I don't think that how we communicate will change too much in the next couple of years or next few years, because we still only have certain ways that we can communicate. So we can talk to each other, we can communicate through a mobile device or something like that. But there might be a platform that comes along that turns into a game changer, or an improvement for one of the existing platforms, like Snapchat. There's there's still a lot of opportunity with Snapchat to get into the business side, marketing. Specifically, as their demographic now is younger, skews a little younger than what in our amusement industry that we typically go for. So, okay. But there's still value there.
Yeah.
So.
Do you find?
One thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. One thing that I did think of recently is that might change, and it doesn't really have to do with the technology, but more kind of a social change in the U.S. is that fathers are. We always target mothers in our advertising. The majority of the industry does anyway, because they're the ones that hold the purse strings. But I think with the younger fathers, as people are growing up differently and having children, the younger fathers now are more involved in those decision-making, situations for entertainment dollars. Okay. So I think that might be something that shifts in the marketing world too. We may start, we might need to start taking a look at how we can market to the younger fathers in our demographics as well.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and I find it really interesting. Although I can't wrap my head around it for myself. But like you said, Snapchat's a younger demographic, and Facebook is certain things. And you just talked about the difference between marketing to moms versus dads, and that's all, I think, important stuff to consider when you're thinking about how you're going to market and communicate with people. Because in the past, it was just like you said, it was a billboard. Didn't matter who was reading it, mom or dad. You were trying to reach everybody, right? So yeah. That I would imagine adds a new wrinkle.
It does. Hey, but it keeps people like me busy.
That's right.
That's good.
That's right. Good. Awesome. Great. One more for me.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
All right. So this can be based on your experiences or with your, research or anything that you want to put into this. But what are the qualities that most successful leaders share? One or two qualities that you find kind of pretty consistently across the board, okay, if there are any.
Sure, yeah. It's interesting. I think there's definitely consistent characteristics, easy for me to say. But then I think there's characteristics that are almost applied differently for different people. So some might, have a certain characteristic that serves them well, and some, like with any strength, when it's overused, it becomes a weakness. So some may have a characteristic that they use too much, and it actually is a detriment to them. But so that's just a precursor. But I think the first thing that popped into my head was curiosity. For a leader to be curious about their business, to be curious about the people that they work with, to be curious about how things are going to change. I think good leaders and successful leaders are ones who ask a lot of questions, and they really want to know, and they're not afraid to be the person that doesn't know. I think a lot of times, and this might be another quality, is just being humbled and sort of centered, so that if you ask a question, it's not going to be the end of the world if you don't have the answer to everything, I think good leaders, like I said, are curious, and they're willing to ask the question and not be afraid to appear to not have all the answers. And I think that's some people will say that it's the strength of a person that, they have all the answers and they always know what to do. And I don't think every leader does. So I think they, being curious, but also being human, to know that everybody's going to make a mistake and you're not going to have all the answers. So I think that little ball of curiosity and being human, I think that's one kind of element that kind of goes together. And something that you've been talking a lot about is communication. I think great leaders really know how to communicate. And it's not just about sharing information. It's not just about telling people what to do. It's really about listening. And so when a leader can really ask a question and be curious and want to know what the answer is and engage their employees and their guests that way, I think that is a characteristic and a quality that really propels leaders kind of to the next level when they can do that. And I've had the pleasure of working with some pretty high-ranking folks in the attractions industries. People with titles like CEO, COO. These people are not dumb people. They got to their position because they're smart and they really knew what they were doing. And the people that I saw in those roles that are doing it the best, they listen. They really, really do. And I think they bring people in around them that can make up for their deficiencies or their deficits. And they know that those are the people they need to listen to. So I think just a couple of things: being curious, listening, being human and humble. I think those are the ones that kind of top my list.
Great. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that a lot of people think that communication is just talking. And, I'm not saying anybody in particular, obviously, but you watch it, like you mentioned, the debates and stuff like that. It's not just about you talking. It's about you listening, and understanding what the other person is saying, rather than just listening so that you can respond. So
yes,
that's great.
Yes. I used to, and I still do sometimes when we talk about, interacting with guests, when guest complaints and things like that, especially, are you listening to learn or are you listening to respond? And I learned that a long time ago, listening to people's complaints, and I would already have in my head what I wanted to say to them. They were telling me for the 15th time that their kid went on a roller coaster, and and then he was too short to go on, and I'm like, yada yada yada. I already know what my response is going to be, but I wasn't learning. I truly wasn't listening, and that's a lesson that I think you have to kind of go through some things like that to learn that you're probably not listening as well as you think you are.
Right. Yeah, I took a interpersonal communications class in college, and I think it probably taught me more about how to talk to guests than any customer service training or whatever that any park has ever given me. But it gave me a good foundation. We'll put it that way, because like working in the park, you learn as you go too, and you make mistakes too. But yeah, just kind of after a few years of doing that, kind of going back and taking a look at what I learned in interpersonal communication class, and I went, oh, that's what they were talking about, the different ways that people communicate, and, listening for those clues of, is it really a complaint about you, or is it something that happened to them on their way here, or, are they just having a bad day, and, stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's definitely a learning process to get there.
And a learning process that I don't think will ever end.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But if it does, then you might be done. Like you might need to go find something else to do if you ever stop learning in whatever industry you're in. So. And
it's hard to be self-aware about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think people need a little nudge, maybe like, I think you're done.
Sure.
Right? Flip yourself over, you're done. Kind of thing. So good. Well, I think that's all of our questions, right?
Great.
That was too fast.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That was good.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you, Courtney, for your time. I do appreciate it. And since you are launching some consulting services, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Well, I have a website at www.courtneyrayburn.com. And maybe you could put that in the link or something in case nobody knows how to spell that.
I'll put a little title up on the screen.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate
absolutely.
that.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time today, and I can't wait to catch up soon again. Thanks, Courtney.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Have a great day.
You too.